This incident took place in Wilmington, North Carolina, when I was around 9 or 10 years old. At the time, my sister had been in a relationship for a few years and was married to my brother-in-law, Bill, an ex-Marine who had recently re-enlisted in the Army after deciding civilian life wasn't for him. During his year as a civilian, they had started renting a duplex in a cul-de-sac. I often visited them on weekends to help my sister by keeping my nephews entertained while she worked, or just to spend time with them. Despite my frequent visits, I had never seen the woman who would soon terrify us. As my Bill prepared to leave for MOS training, my sister and her family moved in with me and my parents. About a month after they had moved in, my sister realized she wasn't receiving her mail at our house. One day, while we were out getting lunch, we decided to swing by the old neighborhood to pick up her mail. After retrieving it, she called the post office to remind them about the address change. As we were sitting in the car, an elderly woman approached the front passenger side door where I was sitting, watching YouTube. I was immediately startled when I saw her. She was an old lady wearing a pink jacket and a straw hat, the kind you might see at Walmart. This was in the middle of summer on the coast, where it was swelteringly hot, so the fact that she was wearing a jacket was odd. My sister rolled down the window, and the lady asked why she was picking up the mail. My sister explained that she was the former resident, and they engaged in a conversation that lasted about 15 minutes. The entire time, I felt a deep sense of unease, as though something about the woman was off. My eldest nephew, who was in his car seat behind me, caught the woman's attention. She commented on how much we looked alike and how we resembled her own grandkids. She mentioned taking her grandkids on vacations every year and claimed that she bought her hat in the Bahamas, even though it looked like a cheap Walmart hat. Then, she asked if I'd like to be her grandkid, which creeped me out even more. My sister, now visibly uncomfortable, made an excuse for us to leave. The woman walked away, and my sister rolled up the window and started driving towards the middle of the cul-de-sac. Suddenly, we saw the lady sprinting towards us. My sister later mentioned that the woman was holding something, but I never asked what it was. Without hesitation, my sister floored it and raced out of the neighborhood. She never called the police, and I'm not sure if she even remembers the incident. The only reason I recall it so vividly is because of the fear I felt when the woman approached my window. I've often wondered what her intentions were, whether she planned to kidnap us or worse, but I'm glad I never found out. I no longer live in Wilmington, and I'm certain I'll never return to that neighborhood again. This incident happened back in 2003. I was having lunch with friends, and we were discussing our plans for Friday evening. Previously, we had visited a supposedly haunted place, but it was a bit disappointing. My friend's girlfriend was pretty spooked, but we found the experience underwhelming. My friend, B, was eager to try something else, as the last outing hadn't satisfied his curiosity. Eventually, we decided that checking out a creepy, abandoned hospital might be worth our time. A couple of my Army friends, who were military police, MPs, had once told me about an old field hospital on one of the installations. For context, there were a few installations managed by the US Army that also provided housing for soldiers and their families. Being a military brat, I had access to all the installations. The field hospital was no longer active, but had seen heavy use during the Vietnam War era. Some MPs with working dogs had reported strange occurrences during late-night security checks there. Their dogs would act oddly, refusing to get out of the vehicle, whining and resisting. Naturally, my ghost hunting group thought this would be an excellent location to explore and possibly document something on video. That Friday evening, my friend, his girlfriend Kay, and I set out to visit the field hospital. Everyone piled into my Honda Civic, and we departed around 10 p.m., The field hospital was on a base called Sagami Depot, about 18 kilometers, approximately 11 miles, from where we lived, near Naval Air Facility Atsugi in Japan. My little Civic was quick, and I whipped through the narrow, winding back roads to avoid traffic. The evening started pleasantly, with us laughing and chatting, but the mood quickly turned eerie. As I was speeding down the street at 80 kph, about 50 miles per hour, in a 40 kph zone, a calico cat suddenly darted across the road. There was nothing I could do. The oncoming traffic and raised shoulder of the road prevented me from swerving. I ran over the cat. The impact was unmistakable. My car bumped as both right side tires went over the cat. Before I could say anything, Kay turned around in the back seat and looked back at the cat. No! I see it. It has your tire imprint on its body. You killed the cat! Kay screamed. Stop looking at it. Seriously! Stop! I snapped back. B tried to calm her down, but I exchanged a worried glance with him. We needed to pull over and assess any damage to my car. I drove another quarter-mile before pulling into a convenience store parking lot. B and I got out to check the car, expecting to see blood or fur on the tires or the side of the vehicle. To our surprise, there was nothing. No blood, no fur, no signs that I had run over a cat. We were speechless. We all knew what had happened, yet there was no evidence. That's when I remembered that Kay had looked back at the dead cat. In Japan, there are many superstitions about cats. Some believe that looking back at a dead cat can cause its spirit to latch onto you. I had never taken these superstitions seriously until that moment. I explained this to Kay, and although B began to blame her, I diffused the situation. She didn't know any better, and it was just a superstition. However, she insisted that she had seen the dead cat with a tire imprint on it. She pleaded for us to go back and check. Doubting myself, I agreed to double back. If the cat was still there, we could at least remove its body from the road. But when we returned to the spot, there was nothing. No roadkill, no blood, nothing. We were all baffled, but we decided to move on and continue our drive. As we approached the T intersection, I decided to take a shortcut by turning right. The road led uphill and into some trees. I stepped on the gas and we cruised along. About a kilometer later, I saw a traffic light at another intersection. As I let off the gas to slow down, I rolled down my window to light a cigarette. That's when I noticed something strange at the corner of the intersection. A calico cat, just like the one I had run over. All three of us noticed it. The cat slowly turned its head toward us, made eye contact with me, and let out a slow, throaty meow. I was frozen with fear, my cigarette burning in my mouth. The cat meowed louder and began to hiss. Fucking go already! Go! 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 Kay screamed, tears streaming down her face. I hit the gas and sped away. After a while, B leaned over and said in a low voice, Yo, we should just call off the hunt tonight. I got bad vibes and Kay is wound up. I agreed. We stopped at a diner for a late dinner, hoping to calm our nerves with some food and coffee. Afterward, I dropped B and Kay off and headed home. When I got home, I felt unusually tired. I pulled out my futon, got ready for bed, and tried to keep my mind off what had happened earlier. But as I lay there, I kept replaying the events in my head. Eventually, I turned away from the window and closed my eyes, hoping to sleep. My room was quiet, and I could hear the distant chirping of crickets. Then I heard it. Meow! 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 The sound came from my window. I looked up in the dark and saw a pair of orange, glowing eyes staring back at me. Meow! I threw my blanket over my head and rolled away, my heart racing. The horrid moaning and meowing continued. Then, suddenly, it stopped. The next day, I convinced myself it must have been a stray cat fighting with another cat. I went about my Saturday as if nothing had happened. That evening, after a night out at the bars, I returned home. To my surprise, there were no meows or strange occurrences. I drifted off to sleep without incident. On Monday, I told my Japanese co-workers what had happened. They agreed that looking back at dead cats brings bad luck. We all blamed Kay, jokingly. I know, we were horrible. Later that afternoon, B and I took a break from work to enjoy some canned coffee and cigarettes outside the warehouse. As we chatted, a calico cat suddenly appeared, trotting along as if it didn't notice us. We fell silent. Then, the cat turned its head, paused mid-stride, and let out a loud, menacing meow. Meow! It hissed at us before darting away. One of our Japanese co-workers saw the whole thing and commented on how strange it was. None of us had ever seen a cat like that around the warehouse before. To this day, I have no explanation for what happened. That was the last time I saw that cat, and I never heard those eerie meows again. This story was told to me by my father in 2007. At the time, my father was in his 30s and serving in the U.S. Army. His general informed him that they would be training somewhere in Nevada. So my father did what he was supposed to. He gathered his gear, boarded one of the tanks they would be transporting, an M1 Abrams, and waited to arrive at their destination. They were relatively close, so the wait wasn't long. My father was riding on top of the tank, along with one other person, while the commander was sticking out of the hatch on top. As they were driving through a desert and nearing the edge of a forest, my father says he spotted a humanoid creature about 20 feet tall with long arms and legs. The creature appeared to be very skinny, with its bones slightly visible beneath its pale skin. My father pointed it out to his commander and the other person on the tank, and they both saw the creature just before it disappeared into the forest. To this day, only my father and those two other people saw this strange, human-like creature. Although my father is no longer in the army, he still vividly remembers seeing it.